Now, picture this, it's 1993. I am at a drugstore with my parents as they shop around for God knows what. Now back then, the magazine racks would be filled with tons of gaming magazines for consoles and the PC. So I could just waste away hours at the magazine rack. In fact, I think most of us kids out there back then could do the same. It was our escape. So there I am flipping through a PC gaming magazine when I see many pictures of up-and-coming role-playing games on the computer side, and the pictures alone were just blowing me away. As someone who had just gotten into gaming on the PC side after getting a computer that same year, I was salivating at the new world of games that had opened up to me. I was big on RPGs back then and had been in awe as to how the CD medium was being used on the PC side versus the consoles. Now there were many great titles in the early 1990s as SVGA type monitors became cheaper and cheaper, and therefore allowed gamers to take advantage of the upscaled colors and overall graphics. The PC side was cranking out some great RPGs, bottom line. The Ultima series had been improving with each entry. Quest for Glory was offering up a unique take on RPGs. The Dragonlance series had some solid titles for the advanced Dungeons & Dragons fans out there. Might and Magic was getting better and better, and Betrayal at Krondor would be an amazing title that would take RPG of the Year for 1993. But it had some good competition from
Lands of Lore, the Throne of Chaos.
Yeah, there is no way I'm going to announce that title when they got the great Sir Patrick Stewart to voice that intro. And he nailed it. According to online reports, he was paid around $30,000 or so for 3 hours of work and got all his voiceover done in less time than that. So let's get the basics out of the way before I get into the game in a little bit more detail. It was developed by Westwood Studios and published by Virgin Games in September of 1993. Westwood would use the same engine using the Eye of the Beholder as a foundation for this game, but they did not want to make another game based off the Dungeons & Dragons franchise, opting to start fresh with a new game and storyline for the new title now that Virgin had acquired them back in 1992. By this time, Westwood Studios had gathered a pretty good reputation as a developer, having released some real solid titles like the Eye of the Beholder games, The Legend of Corandia, Doom 2, Young Merlin on the Super NES, not a lot of people talk about that one, and Order of the Griffin on the TurboGrafx-16, as Westwood Associates. But most people out there remember Westwood mostly for the Command & Conquer series, which went head-to-head with Warcraft and StarCraft in the mid to late 1990s. The game was released on 8 discs before getting a CD upgrade which included the added voices to many of the characters in the game.
The time has come, and I have no choice. I must destroy her now.
But the overall voice acting here by everyone is actually quite good.
I want it now! Your Unholiness. You will not make me wait again. Ah, it's a pretty little package. At last, Richard and his puny forces have met their match.
The story here is that King Richard has gotten word that Scotia, the evil witch, has gotten her hands on a ring called the Nether Mask. Wait a minute, if it's a ring, why is it called the mask? You know what, never mind. After the king is poisoned, you must find a cure by hunting down special ingredients throughout the land.
He still lives, but we have no antidote, and he sinks deeper by the minute. We must now channel all of our magic into a protective shield.
Good thing is that you won't be alone on your quest, and soon you're gonna get some companions to help you out. You got 4 different pre-made selectable characters to choose from at the beginning, each one with slightly different stats. Fighter, rogue, and mage skills will determine how they handle in combat, how good they can use lockpicks successfully, and how well they can use magic. The good thing here is that no matter who you choose, you will always have access to magic. Conrad here is considered the well-rounded of the 4.
I'm the most well-rounded champion for your cause. Face it, with all the dangers in the land, you need someone with my adaptability.
If you want good stats across the board, he's your choice. Especially if you aren't sure if you want to go with high magic stats or good attack skills. He's somewhere in between. Kieran here is, according to the online wiki, the canonical champion based on the actual storyline. He is a Huline, a race of humanoid-like felines who reside across the Southlands alongside the Dracoids, which I'm gonna get to that shortly.
Strength. Magics. What good is it all if you can't dodge blows? I'm fast. Quick. Go with these lodestones if you plan to plod along. But if you want to win this quest, better pick me.
Kieran here has the highest dexterity of the 4, meaning he will evade attacks the best but has very low magic. However, he does learn fast and is considered the most powerful of all 4 characters. Michael is the other human champion. His profile pic, it's the same pic that you're gonna find next to the word jackass in the dictionary. I mean, just look at him. My god, that face.
Let's not have any fooling around here. Strong is strong. Trust your instincts on this one. I'm the best fighter of the bunch. A natural.
He is the brute of the group, the strongest fighter out of the 4 with a very slow magic learning curve. But if you want brute strength on your side, this character will do just fine. Axial here, he's a Dracoid, a humanoid lizard race of beings that are very well versed with magic. Based on the lands of lore canon, they were once part of a vast empire that spread across the Southlands. He is basically your magic user out of the 4. He has weak attacks but makes up for his fast magic leveling up skills.
Do my looks frighten you? Magic runs strong amongst my people. I may not seem as strong as the others, but I'm more adept with the magic of the land.
The companions in the game will vary, but your party will max out always at 3. There was a bug in the game initially where one of the companions would get stuck on your team, and if another one tried to join later on in the game, it would cause you to get stuck at that point. Only way to fix that was to either have a saved game that started you off at a point before the character joined, or to send a copy of your save file to Westwood so they can modify the file to remove the character from the party. The companions that you will be aided are Bakata, a Thomgog, Timothy, an elf, or at least he looks like an elf, Roland, well, he tries to aid you, Laura, and Paulson. The game is very typical of RPGs of that day, with your character profiles pics on the HUD with a small window showing your field of play all in one screen. Now, I don't know much about all other RPGs back then, but Lands of Lore plays a bit too linear for me, with each section of the game being small maze-like areas filled with monsters and some puzzles that sometimes will have you backtracking. You get overworld areas like a forest and underground caves, mines, among other locations, and even a city. The areas are large, but you can traverse them at a really quick pace if you know where it is that you need to get to, assuming you don't run into enemies or, I don't know, booby traps.
Locked.
The combat here is pretty straightforward. You got an attack button and a magic button which you can click on with your mouse, or better yet, you can use the F1, F2, and F3 keys to perform your attacks for each party member, making this a lot easier than having to use your mouse to hover back and forth between party members. You can also move about using the cursor on the screen with the mouse, or you can use the keyboard number pad keys to move about much faster. Funny thing here is that the manual doesn't mention anything about keyboard shortcuts at all, and just assumes that you're going to be using the mouse to play it. Using the keyboard to move around and in battle will speed up the game immensely. Combat here is a bit one-sided, only since it feels very restricted and can sometimes get overwhelming with many enemies attacking you from different sides at once. The combat is like any other RPG, where hits are based on some type of algorithm that will either grant you a hit or a miss. Same with the enemies. It's a little bit infuriating when you take a large amount of damage on one hit, or worse yet, you're poisoned. So now your character is quickly having health depleted and will continue to do so unless he or she gets an herb or dies, which you can then cast heal to revive. That makes no sense because if you cast heal while poisoned, it only brings up your health a bit, but it won't cure you. You have to wait for the character to die so you can cast heal, and then he'll come back to life without being poisoned. Save the herbs for later use since they are not widely available. The game also has a sleep option. Click on it and your party winds down until their health and magic bars replenish completely, unless there are enemies nearby. Sleeping won't cure poison either, like I said, but it can be used to hasten your partner's death. Even with this feature helping out, I still found myself dying a lot, and the save feature here is a blessing. I have yet to beat this game after all these years, and I am committed to finishing it as I capture footage for this video. Now, with a CD-based game, you would figure an orchestrated soundtrack or something with Red Book audio-like quality for the time being, but nope. You got your standard soundtrack here, which is, don't get me wrong, it's not bad at all, and it feels right in place with the world that you are traversing in. But I would have liked to hear some more robust music tracks here and there, like maybe when you're fighting the big slug creature, maybe a boss battle theme or something like that. When I first bought this game back in '93, I had the disc version and was affected by the character bug I mentioned earlier. I had bought it at the same Funko Land I mentioned in my last video, and when I tried returning it, of course I was turned down. I had never had to return a game before on the console side, so this was all new to me. So for months, it just sat there on my bookshelf since there was no internet back then, and I had no idea what the issue was. And since I had no idea, I did not ever think about restarting the game. And it wasn't until it came out for CD-ROM later on that I bought a new copy and the bug had been fixed in that version of the game. Plus, it had Patrick Stewart voicing the king as well as many other great voice actors lending their talent to this game.
This inn seems well supplied. Are you by chance Timothy of Gladstone?
Yes, I am Timothy. And who might you be?
I am Conrad. King Richard has sent me to retrieve the Ruby of Truth from Sir Roland. One of the Dark Army spies has a mask or something. She's become a shape changer and apparently threatens the kingdom.
Scotia. She is the most evil woman alive. I heard that she had hired the excavators, but I never dreamed she'd actually find the mask. Well then, Conrad, let's go now. I'll get my things together and meet you outside.
Even though it's linear, this game can get a little crazy sometimes. The mazes in the game can get really large and sprawling and can overwhelm you unless you are good at drawing maps, or even more difficult than that, going over the game facts and looking at the walkthrough. But hey, I did not have that luxury back then, and I went through lots of paper trying to get through some areas. Lands of Lore is not only a great RPG and a perfect indicator of what the PC landscape was back then when it came to these type of games in that genre, but it is also an insight to what made great games back in those early days of the CD medium. These games did not have immense and multi-million-dollar budgets like they do now. They just had an idea, a linear approach to telling a storyline, and using the CD medium to bring these games to life, not by implementing over-the-top FMV clips, but short clips sometimes using in-game graphics with great voice acting to draw the player into that story. While the graphics engine was slightly spruced up from the eye of the beholder in terms of the 3D-like environments, it was overshadowed by the vastly superior engine that was used on Betrayal at Krondor, which, not surprisingly, would go on to win RPG of the Year for 1993, edging out this title for that award. When the Lands of Lore team saw it in action, they knew that their game was at that point behind in terms of technology, but had already dedicated too much to the new engine and were too deep in development to make major changes. The game still gathered critical praise across the industry for its gameplay, graphics, and when the CD version released, got awards for the voice acting as well, specifically Patrick Stewart.
I tell you, we must march with whatever troops can be gathered locally.
Isn't Eric mustering his white army? Have we lost all confidence in our own military capabilities?
Eric is the finest commander in the kingdom, but he is a 5-day march from here.
As long as we have our own magic, I really don't see where we need more than the defenses we already have in place.
You know, that death scene by Roland, that needs to be awarded. The game would go on to receive 2 sequels, Lands of Lore, Guardians of Destiny, and Lands of Lore 3, both of which I have yet to play since I've yet to finish the first one. After part 3, however, the series will be laid to rest. Thank you, Roland. But if you really start reading into the storyline, you're gonna find that the Lands of Lore mythos is deep, and the developers and writers put a lot of detail and attention into the lands where the story takes place. If you're a fan of fantasy storylines, go read the Lands of Lore wiki to really dive deep into this world. I found it to be very interesting, and who knows, if I get to playing the next 2 titles, I might revisit this series later on in the future. So until next video, keep watching and keep gaming.
Oh, this guy? That's the guy?
Yeah, that's the guy.
Does he actually smile like that with his upper and lower teeth at the same time?